Thank you. Good morning to all of you. And Excellencies, distinguished guests and speakers, let me say how pleased and honored I am to be here and to kick off the first session of this first Mediterranean Gulf Forum. I want to underline that this is the first edition because this is the first brick that we are putting on a way that we want to pave together. I wish to thank in this respect all the partners that offer us this opportunity of the Italian Atlantic Committee in this endeavor, and particularly the Habat Al Thuraya Research and Consultancy in Abu Dhabi and the Center for Study Mutawasit in Cagliari. This forum represents a landmark event for the Italian Atlantic Committee, being the result of the cooperation and outreach activities that has been conducted in the recent years, let me say and thank by the director and coordinator of the Mediterranean and Middle East program of the Italian Atlantic Committee, Dr. Emiliano Stornelli. At the same time, I need to thank particularly Amer Al-Sabaleh, for Secretary General of the Mediterranean Gulf Forum, for the effort and the cooperation he was putting in this endeavor, as well as the presence here of the Secretary General of the Atlantic Treaty Association, Jason Wiseman. Let me say that for us, this initiative is some way unique. I want to say this. We were looking not to have the usual conference, the usual seminars, the usual dialogues. Here we are, experts, decision makers, people coming from the economic field and from different fields, all together in looking from the two shores of the Mediterranean and the Gulf, in seeking for common solution, concrete and pragmatic solutions to our common problems. Of course, we are not going to solve today the peace process in the Middle East, but we can put some concrete bricks in order to make more stable our process. And from here, we have already some future steps in front of us. The next one will be probably in Abu Dhabi, November, and when I will take the responsibility in a few weeks of the Atlantic Treaty Association, this umbrella organization networking 40 Atlantic Council, influent Atlantic Council worldwide, and based in Brussels, we are looking to have the Atlantic Treaty Association in Brussels as a focal point for the activities and the cooperation between the Gulf, the Mediterranean, and the Euro-Atlantic institutions. And in this respect, let me say that the Italian Atlantic Committee is the perfect bridge in order to narrow the space and that we have from the Gulf to Brussels. The consolidation of a new constructive synergies between the Euro-Atlantic and the Middle Eastern dimension is more relevant today, at a time when NATO and the European Union members are facing the same threat of a terrorist and armed extremist group. And let me say that this is going to be also more complex and more difficult in the future, particularly when we look in our southern neighborhood, when we put this together with the problems of global warming, scarcity of water, food insecurity, human insecurity. So we have common threats, common challenges that we can tackle and we must tackle by an international cooperation together. Let me say also that I'm a son of a diplomat, but I was never been accused to be a diplomat. Let me say that the present situation is the consequence of ambiguous, for sure not effective policies that has been conducted in the recent years, with conflicting drivers, which have eventually made their way today to the rise of a new territorial entity in between Syria and Iraq, while engulfing Libya in a destructive internal war with uncertain outcomes. Islamic State, and I am one of those people that don't like this wording. This is not a state and is not Islamic. This is a rich group of terrorists. Anyway, let me say, IS is altering the regional dynamics forcing today even rivals to cooperate. International cooperation is a must if we want to address the major issues that are coming from that area. The seriousness of the common threat requires the implementation of coordinated policies in the field of crisis management and counterterrorism, making effective, I want to underline this, making effective the cooperative security approach that has been outlined in the NATO strategic concept that was adopted by NATO in 2010. And when we look to this strategic concept of NATO, as well as of the European Union, since the 90s, all the time you can read in that papers that the security in the Mediterranean is strictly linked to the security of Europe. This is something evident. It was evident even during the Roman Empire, but it's more evident, it's more important today when we consider just the economic factor that we have in the Mediterranean. The small spot of water, the 0.6% of all the waters of the planet, where every year we have an oil traffic of more than 600,000 tons of oil products. They are equal to 1/3, 1/4 of the world traffic. In this respect, let me say that when we are looking to international cooperation, the international coalition that has been built for Iraq and Syria is going in the right direction, but further efforts will be needed to compensate, first of all, the delays in initiating the operation and the insufficient deployment of forces in respect to the threat that we are called to face. Moreover, the international coalition seems to be suffering from a lack of a coherent strategy binding together all actors involved in a wider project of regional stabilization. An ambitious project of medium-long term, able to achieve a challenging synthesis of different views currently opposing each other in the area. Is a coalition that is pursuing sometimes different targets. And when I'm saying pursuing different targets, sometimes these different targets are different political targets, but even, technically speaking, different military targets, because there are some member of a coalition that is pursuing some specific military targets different from all others. So in the absence of a similar multilateral perspective, the international coalition will likely achieve a limited success, while we need a different approach in order to succeed and to achieve the results that we are looking to get. If we want to have a cooperative security sustained by actor cooperative politics, meaning the sharing of the ultimate political goals by the various stakeholders. And the competition among different political agendas is also jeopardizing the stabilization process in Libya. A further deterioration of the security scenario might lead the country to a final structural collapse, once again to the advantage of extremist group. And the spillover effect will hit Egypt, the Northern African countries, as well as Europe and even the Sahel. In this respect, Italy, of course, is with 8,000 kilometers of shores going deeply in the Mediterranean and towards Libya, is a major stakeholder. It's very concerned, is acting in the right direction, also on the training of the security forces, but also on the economic field. And in order to avoid energy disruption, the worsening of the humanitarian crisis tied to illegal immigration, not to mention the fallouts of this situation, the economic and trade relations, which have already caused serious damages to 1,000 enterprises operating in Libya. Italy actually is at present the only embassy, as far as I know, open in Libya. And calling also for major involvement of the major Euro-Atlantic institutions. That seems quite I don't want to say reluctant, but a little bit lazy in order to take action in terms of a cooperative security action in Libya. From this point of view, the unfinished business in Libya continues to pose significant challenges to the Atlantic Alliance as well to the European Union, questioning the nature of the partnership that has been established in the region. I will not enter here in the unsuccessful partnership that was carried out for decades by the European Union that was spending with MEDA 1 and MEDA 2 more than 10 billion euros in the Mediterranean without achieving a charter of security, without achieving a free trade zone. Some results, of course, in the cultural domain. But also NATO has to revise and to rethink and to reassess the role and the method of its partnership, and maybe the regional approach that was the backbone of the partnership system that launched and successfully in Central and Southeastern Europe, maybe we have to start thinking also to a kind of hierarchization of the partners when we are looking to the Mediterranean and also to the new partners in the East. These criteria will help also to select and to enhance the partnership with some countries that are sharing the same ultimate goals and the same strategy at the mid-longer term. When we are talking about partnership and looking to the future, of course, we have to take into consideration carefully the scenario in which we are going to act and the context in which we are going to act. And let me say that even in this not welcome situation that we have in front of us, there is now, in my opinion, a new momentum in which we can make the difference, in which a forum like this can make the difference. That's why I was absolutely endorsing this initiative. First of all, we have to look to the regional context, because the regional context in the Mediterranean, in the Gulf, will be anyway the key element that we cannot avoid, and that will influence any attempt to promote a dialogue and regional cooperation. And of course, when we are looking to the context, I cannot avoid to mention the Arab-Israeli conflict that is a major cause of the instability of the region, but that cannot be used as an excuse not to go to a further cooperation and to launch programs in order to see in which domains we can work together. And when we're looking to the context, we have also to take into consideration all the key players, all the key actors there, and there are several key actors, several different key actors. We have 3 non-Mediterranean countries, for instance, like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, that we have to take into consideration. We have also a Mediterranean country that is not an Arab country, like Turkey, that has a relevant role in the area. But we have also the United States, that was till some months ago, let me say, reluctant to act. This was the wording that you was getting in Washington by all the think tanks, reluctancy. And when you are not acting, then you are obliged to react. And this seems also to be a position shared by some European countries and even the European Union. So we are in a phase, in a stage in which, let me say very openly and frankly speaking, we cannot expect from the major, from the United States and the major Euro-Atlantic institutions a big change of action in the area. The European Union is engaged in a long bureaucratic process that has to, for the renewal of its leadership, and while from the Wales summit was coming out NATO ready, prepared, but still we have to understand where is the strategy, prepared for what and ready for what. It's a NATO that it's more and more defensive, but we have to be also proactive and not only to react. When we are looking to the United States, we have to take into consideration that they are going more and more into domestic issues because we have the midterm elections. But this is a problem not only of NATO, not only of the European Union, not only of the United States, but let me say that when we look to the context in the Mediterranean, in the Middle East, the focus on the domestic affairs is also a problem of the countries of the region, of the Mediterranean region. If we look to the political transition, if we look to the political transition of the different Arab countries in the Mediterranean, they were pursuing different paths, but they have a common trend. All of them are focused on domestic policies, on domestic issues. So when we're saying that we need strong international cooperation, we have also to tackle and to address this challenge. That is a challenge also coming from the civil society, because when the civil society was speaking loudly in the Mediterranean Arab countries, also the civil, and sometimes they are not listened by the leadership, also the civil society is looking for domestic claims against the regime. So how to make differently, how to make possible the international cooperation. And I am not mentioning of stakeholders like Russia, that we have also to take into consideration, that is back in the Middle East, but how to make the difference. The difference can be made by a forum like this. Experts, decision makers, they can make the difference, bringing together the Euro-Atlantic institutions and the qualified civil society in the Mediterranean. And again, in conclusion, let me say that the Atlantic Treaty Association that I am going to chair and to conduct in the next weeks can be in Brussels, the right place where to address this issue, and the Italian Atlantic Committee is the perfect bridge in this respect. Thank you for your attention.